All righty, welcome to the March 1st blockchain meeting. Recording has begun. Mainnet check-in. I'm sure everyone's seen this by now, but we had a pretty eventful Thursday night / Friday morning last week that culminated in the release of the emergency point release 2.0.7. The underlying problem was that there was a bug in the error handling code for the case where you produce a microblock stream that consumes your miner's compute budget and overruns it. The act of recovering from that error was causing all the nodes to delete the same valid blocks. So blocks, in this case, that were the parent of the microblock stream, which in turn caused 2 blocks to go missing from the blockchain altogether. Almost altogether, I should say. Thanks to us noticing this quickly and also quick thinking on Pascal's part. Thank you, Pascal. As well as some miner somewhere being online capable of replicating one of the blocks, the chain was able to recover. And we have the emergency fix 2.0.7 removes this bug. Thanks also to Aaron for jumping on this with me at 2:30 in the morning Eastern, which I guess was 1:30 your time.
Yeah. So I have one, I guess, like follow-up question on this. So like the underlying issue where we had a miner confirm a too heavy microblock, that hasn't been patched or explored. Like we don't know why the miner confirmed this invalid microblock chain, right?
That's right. We still don't know why that's not been patched.
Gotcha.
But I have noticed that per our recommendation, most miners, I think actually almost all of them have turned off microblock processing for the time being. Like they're not microblocks.
Got it. Cool. All right, we should, I guess, start an issue for that then.
There's one already open.
Okay.
Yeah, that generally shouldn't have been happening, but the catastrophic problem arises from bad error handling on that. So we're working on that this week. We'll put it into 2.0.8.
Jude, I have a quick question, but how did you guys spot this?
How did we stop it?
No, how did you notice it?
I have so similar to Pascal's stacks dump tool, I have my own tool that displays the chain status and the chain history. I can actually load it here on my screen. Oops, not there. It's port 3000 on 30,000 on the follower. I have this page right here. You see it? It has
I see it.
History, and you click each of these links and it shows you information about the blocks. In parentheses, it has 2 flags, processed and orphaned. And I noticed that we had an orphaned block, which means that the block was invalid. So that was concerning. And that prompted me to look at this further. And I noticed that a few blocks back, there was a block that was marked as processed and not orphaned that was not present. And that's when I was like, oh shit, something's gone wrong. And that was what led to the eventful Thursday night.
Got it. Is this page public?
No.
Okay.
It takes a while to generate, so I don't really talk about it publicly.
I mean, it is public, but not publicized.
Yes.
Yeah. If you grab the IP address, you're there, Reed.
Cool.
You can also run it locally with a local node. It's just a shell script, so it just reads your chain state and it outputs an HTML file.
Cool. Thanks.
So emergency release happened sometime, I think this week. We're going to try to do 2.0.8. Is that how people at Hero are feeling? Friday.
So I think that there's like a couple open PRs that are like have one approving review on them.
Yeah.
That would be pretty useful, I think, to get into the next release. And potentially also the Atlas PR.
Yeah, I think maybe we should broaden this discussion a little bit. I've spoken individually to Aaron and Jude about this, but essentially establishing some sort of predictability or cadence around releases that are important but not reactive. So to Aaron's point, we are accumulating a handful of PRs that are all important. The Atlas PR, I think re-enabling BNS is pretty important. getting the working directory fixes in so we can have restarts be faster. I think that addresses a whole host of issues. And then the related PRs around safe shutdown of the process. So we can talk about which PRs we want to include in the next release, but at the same time, I think it might be useful to say, well, if not, there's nothing on fire, and if we are steadily accumulating useful PRs, should we set some sort of cadence that we'll package up a release every month or so for the next N months, and then the cadence goes to once a quarter or something like that as things become more and more stable. Yeah, any reactions, thoughts to that?
Yeah, I think that sounded reasonable to me. Like, it's almost like a patch Tuesday is what this is. So we just have
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
a big release, and that's, yeah, everyone just rolls it out in their own time.
And now that we do have several external integrators, exchanges, partners running nodes locally, I think creating this predictability is also useful for them. Related to all of this, I think one other feedback that I've gotten is, and we've talked about this, it's not new, it's just getting disciplined about it. Basically, two-parter. One is enforcing commitlint or similar convention so that the process of generating a changelog becomes easier. We are generating a changelog already, and so just making that easier. And then the other thing that I've gotten feedback from people on is when the announcement goes out, either on announce a distribution list or we post something on GitHub, sometimes it's hard for people to read that and understand the urgency of the update. Like, is it something that needs to happen ASAP? Is it something that can happen as part of a scheduled maintenance? So I'm trying to look at how some of other projects are doing it. So I'm going to go through Polkadot. There are a handful of other projects that people have sent me that, hey, look at how these projects are doing it. We have found this useful, and come up with some set of recommendations on how to communicate the urgency and importance of some of these upgrades. So again, just wanted to bring that up as well. If folks are aligned, I can drive the next steps on which recommendations to adopt and how to go about them.
Yeah, do you want to open an issue on the GitHub repo, like just a process?
Yeah.
So I guess maybe the next question is, does the bug in the microblock mining constitute an emergency release that would need to go out before the regular cadence? I think it does personally, but I'm not sure if it makes sense to try to ship that as a separate release or try to bundle it in with the next round of releases, like with the Atlas PR and a couple other outstanding PRs. How is Hero feeling about this?
I think that the set of like currently staged changes in develop, like plus getting Atlas re-enabled, plus this microblock fix, like constitutes enough that we should cut a release off schedule.
Yeah, I tend to agree there.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like an emergency release, but
yeah, it's just bug fixes all around. I noticed that also just on Discord, like we can talk about branches that aren't merged yet, and miners will try them out, especially if they fix real problems for them. So
yeah, the miners evidently don't really care about running what's the latest in master. So.
I also wanted to add maybe a bit of context for other integrators. So I really like the suggestion that we should point out specifically that should be like a maintenance update or something that needs to happen ASAP. We have a few folks that also receive the announcement emails and they land in the spam folder. I don't know if there's anything we can actually do about that, but I noticed that my emails are landing in spam folder as well, coming from the foundation. So maybe there's something to check there.
Well, behind the scenes is just a Google group, so it's not even something we could do much about. It's not like we control the DNS server for it or anything.
Your DMARC settings might be triggering spam activation.
Is that something that I could potentially even change in Google Groups?
Yeah, but we can look into that offline.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Am I spelling that right? DMARC.
Yep.
Cool. Alrighty, let's go ahead and run through the board then. There's nothing else on the release cadence. Cool. I haven't seen much movement on the more metrics PR. I'm guessing it's just still something that's in progress. I don't think Jay Wiley's on this call. So
Yeah, I think he's out of office right now.
yeah, that's my understanding too. I think I approved this one already. Changes to the V2 POX endpoint. I think it just needs one more review before we can merge.
Yeah.
And revisit working Dir architecture. I've reviewed and approved this. The tests, there's still an X up of the test, though I'm not sure why. Let's go ahead and pull that open. It's probably nothing though.
Yeah, so I did push some changes aiming at addressing your feedback thread with the path buff stuff. And I think it broke something, so I need to investigate.
Oh, weird. Okay. But otherwise, though, it looked fine to me. Looks like Pascal's also signed off on it here and has even repaired the stack stump tool to work with it.
So if this PR, we're shipping it as like breaking the current working dir so that like nodes just can't restart without a blank working directory, then we should probably also take this opportunity to clear the migration path in the sortition DB. Like there's like one migration, DB migration implemented. We should just get rid of it
Because they have to restart anyway.
Yeah.
It's a good point. I'll make a comment to that. That sound good?
Yeah, sure, sounds good.
Oh, actually, that PR that implements that also hasn't been merged. So never mind.
Okay, so that's not even a problem.
It's not even a problem.
Okay.
And so, Aaron, are you saying that the migration is already implemented?
There's a migration implemented in a PR that's
Okay.
I think waiting on
Okay.
you to take a look at it.
Okay. Yeah, I also have a migration in the Atlas PR.
I see.
I mean, the schema is changing, but
The schema is
migration
changing.
not-
There's no migration. Yes.
Okay, so if we merge this last, like after we merge Atlas and after we merge Aaron's PR, then we can just tack on to this a small, like 2 more commits that just take away those migrations.
Yeah.
Cool. I think this issue, there's an associated PR with this somewhere. Pull it up. What about transaction monitoring?
Yeah, I think it's 2457 there.
Alrighty, I think this one is also just waiting for one reviewer.
Yeah.
All right, so whenever someone gets a chance to give it a second checkbox. Thanks. And we also got this PR. I left some initial feedback. Thanks for sending this over, Rita. I thought it was really good. I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that we want to make sure to, I see you've already rebased it to next. Okay, that's what I was going to say. Looks like we were looking for other feedback here as well. All right, in progress. Still working on 1805. Hope to get it out sometime before the end of March. Modification of mining module. This one's, I'm just basically gonna put this in backlog. So you just keep coming back to it and no progress gets made on it. Refactoring the working directory to allow node reuse. I think the PR for this is pretty much ready to go, I want to say.
Yeah, the PR is open, and also develop already includes the changes that allow directory reuse.
Yes, so I think there's one thing that needs to be done, and that's the thing I posted on Slack on Friday. Yeah, I'm basically doing some tests with Atlas plus the working dir stuff. And the graceful termination is working, but the graceful resuming is not quite there. And I think that the POC sync watchdog is like there's some stuff that needs to happen on this end. So I need to investigate.
Can you describe what's happening when you resume?
So when I resume, so the main thread is basically caught in this POC sync routine where it's just waiting on something. So yeah, like there's nothing happening really.
That's bizarre.
Like the peer-to-peer thread is booting as expected, and like you can see that there's some cycles happening on the peer-to-peer thread, but the main thread is blocked. So yeah.
I don't know if it's waiting for a downloader sync or an in sync or anything like that.
Probably, yeah.
All right, yeah, if you want to just work with me offline, we can figure out what's going on there. It might just be a bug in the watchdog that has to be patched.
Sure, okay.
Cool. Stacking details in V2POX. This is in progress. I'm sorry, this is a review in progress. There's a PR for it already. 1641. Any movement on this, Pascal?
No, still not.
Okay.
I will get to it.
Yep. We know.
Should we, for PRs that have been open for, I don't know, 6+ months, should we just close them out? We can always reopen them whenever they're ready to be reviewed, but I think there's just some like a low burn cognitive attrition to go through them every single week without progress.
All right. I'm fine with that if Pascal is, but I'll let Pascal make the call.
Sure, no, yeah.
I mean, we could even put like a similar to Stalebot to kind of automatically prune out those PRs so it doesn't feel personal. It's a very dispassionate act.
Alrighty. Pascal, if you want to go ahead and close this whenever you're ready and just reopen it when you have something more. And DeWalker, is that something that Stalebot can just do right now?
No, right now I think it's just configured for issues, but I can tweak that.
Okay. Possible improvements to local reg test setup here.
Yeah, I started looking at this on Friday, and I'm hoping to have a PR sometime this week addressing some of this stuff.
Ah, sweet. Awesome. How about decouple the Clarity VM? Is this just going to be like a long running issue, I guess?
Yeah, I think so. I should probably make some smaller sub issues for this. Currently, I'm working on a PR that moves out the codec related stuff from the net module into its own module. So yeah, I think I can have that ready for review this afternoon.
Awesome. I'm looking forward. Speaking of which, I don't think, okay, this wasn't in the project for some reason. Your other PR, Reed, the one about
About the string stuff.
Yeah, let's go ahead and
yeah,
these things.
I think I'm not really sure. Yeah, this was something I was going to revisit after the codec stuff because they're kind of intertwined. And so yeah, this one is going to need to be there's going to need to be a bunch of changes to this, but you could just close this for now, I think.
Okay. Sound good.
Perfect.
Cool. All right. Revisit working to architecture. I think we just commented on the related one. Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Okay, new issue. All burns in debug output in chronological order, not value sorted order. I think this is a comment about the logs. So we got a thumbs up from Maximalist T here. This is something we could just do as like a one-off PR, I think, because I think it's just logging. Any takers?
Maybe just tag it as good first issue.
Yeah, I would say, Pavitra, if you want to take a stab at it, since your other PRs are all consensus critical, they won't be merged for a while. There's something that we can get done pretty much immediately.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can assign it to me.
Sounds good. All right, miner crashed. Excuse me. Commented on this back and forth. I can pull up the logs here, but basically what's happening is it's a uniqueness constraint in the SQLite database for the Clarity VM. It's trying to insert the same block twice, and it's an old block. It's like the 6th block in the chain. He says this happens after processing the first 1200 blocks. I'm not entirely sure how this could be happening, but I guess I'm just waiting for him at this point to provide some more context because the logs just show the crash trace.
I've seen this during spin up.
Oh.
If I try to use the block pusher.
Interesting.
So I suspect that there is maybe some sort of concurrency related issue here where one thread processes a block before finishes processing a block after another thread has checked whether or not a block has existed.
If that's something that can be triggered by a network upload of a block, that's also kind of concerning. That's like a denial of service vulnerability.
Yes, but I'm fairly confident this only impacts spin up.
Yeah, I think you might be right here. I'll make note of that. Alrighty, that's good to know. I can go ahead and try reproducing it. This is the issue we talked about earlier about the microblock miner producing a string that's too costly to be mined. What should be happening is we should obviously not be confirming the final microblock with the costly transaction, but somehow that's not happening. I can look into that this week. Replaced by fee calculates new fee incorrectly. Oops, here it is. Frigger reported this. It looks like like Aaron. I keep saying Cantai in my head because it's your username. Looks like you had commented on this.
Yeah, if you just if you look at the mempool acceptance code, there's 2 fee calculations. There's like estimated fee and then like the actual fee. And the estimated fee is just the actual fee times the byte length of the transaction. And the replace by fee check uses the estimated fee, not the actual one. And so if the transaction that you're like trying to replace is really large, then you have to use a much higher fee. So I think in this case, Freaker was trying to replace an enormous transaction. And so he had to like 10x the fee.
Yeah, I think that's a artifact I think left over from back when the TX fee was the TX fee rate. And I guess that the rate calculation would be why you're multiplying the estimated fee times the byte length.
Yeah.
Oops. Okay, that's definitely a bug. Oops. Okay. Any takers? This is also a small one. This is like a one-off change.
Yeah, you can assign this to me, Jude.
Sounds good. Let's see. Allow usage of shorthand contract address references in contract call. Oops. This one over here. I actually opened a PR to fix this. All it does is it updates. The fundamental problem is that when you use Clarity CLI with Clarity JS SDK, it's difficult to use with multiple contracts at once because the underlying Clarity CLI binary, when it does a check via the analysis pass, it uses an ephemeral contract ID. But if you're trying to check a contract that calls into other contracts and you use the shorthand notation, so just the dot name of contract as opposed to the address dot name, the same principle that only works if you've been using the same principle for all those contracts. And when you instantiate a contract, in his case, he was actually supplying a different contract ID, which the instantiation code lets you do. So what IPR does is it first of all changes the behavior of Clarity CLI so that it can take a contract identifier as an argument as well when doing the check, and that fixes the underlying problem. And I also sent a related PR to Clarity JS SDK that plumbs this through so that the tests that he was trying to run on his Clarity code are now actually passing as written. That said, my familiarity with Clarity JS SDK is very minimal. So I'd actually appreciate like people who are more familiar with this taking a closer look at it, because I don't want to do something that's outside of the outside of the direction of where y'all are trying to take this.
I think maybe Matt and I should take a look at this.
Alrighty, I'll go ahead and assign you both.
Cool.
But this all makes sense, like the problem I described?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'd work around that by just backpatching the addresses
Yeah.
in the contract to run different tests a while back.
Yeah,
that was the fastest solution at the time, as opposed to try to do a real fix.
Yeah, and that's what he was talking about too in here, about having to write the fully qualified contract out.
But that looks like a better solution.
Yeah, I think we want to avoid like hard coding the addresses in general, because like this address would change if you deploy your contract on mainnet.
Mm-hmm.
And we would end up with a testnet address hard coded in a mainnet contract.
Yeah, it's definitely more brittle than just having to using the shorthand notation. Anyway, PRs are sent for both. You can do with them whatever you want to do with them. Just as long as you're satisfied that it fixes the underlying problem. Let's see. Less aggressive POX watchdog behavior. Okay, this is actually fixed in the Flashblocks PR. Oops. For some reason, Chrome is being obnoxious. Okay. The issue here is that the one of the reasons, so up until like last week or so, we've been seeing heightened mining activity on the Bitcoin network. We see what we see are blocks arriving like, within a minute or so of their parents, and that can cause miners to miss sortition, which both hurts their mining prospects as well as, makes it so POX participants don't get paid. So what this issue here is describing is a bug in the POX watchdog that makes it too aggressive about trying to make sure that it has all the anchor blocks before proceeding to the next reward cycle. In doing so, it forces it to wait over a minute for each burn chain block it downloads, which of course means that nodes are waiting while a flash block arrives and they have no chance to mine. The patch set that I made in the fix/flash blocks changes this behavior so that if you're still in the same reward cycle as you were before, you can just skip the waiting. Like the downloader will just take care of making sure you get all the blocks. There's no need to delay mining activity for that. And I've been running this, and I also have noticed, I think other miners are running this too, and blocks are having a much easier time getting mined. Like I see, for example, 3 Bitcoin blocks arriving within the same minute, and I just see 3 competing stacks chain tips show up at the same time. So it means that they're at least running this code because they're able to mine blocks in times faster than 1 minute. Another related bug fix that I just noticed when we are doing the initial block download, when a node is booting up, you can actually make it go a lot faster if you make it so that you constrain which nodes the node talks to when it goes and downloads blocks. For example, I can make it so that my node, when it bootstraps, talks to just the seed nodes or just the foundation follower, which I know are faster and have the latest patches and all that, and are running with enough resources that they'll respond almost instantly as opposed to 5 or 6 seconds later. Without this change, your node will talk to other nodes at random to fetch blocks, and it can really slow down the initial sync. The fix for this is pretty straightforward. It's also in the fix flash blocks PR. Unit tests that check open API specs. So we have the OPI. I know that Aaron's PR has the changes to V2 POX have open API specs to them, and we just want to make sure that we programmatically verify that the output of these RPC methods matches the spec. Is that my understanding?
Yeah.
Cool. Ability to get logs by topic. Yeah, we can definitely do this. I think the idea is like, in addition to using info, warn, or error, you can also specify like what aspect of the system the log is coming from, like Bitcoin or Atlas or POX and stuff like that. I've been doing this by file name. I agree it's not the nicest way of doing it. I'm just trying to make sure that this is adding value is all. That's all I meant by this comment here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that we can do piecemeal.
Yeah, I get that impression too. Kind of like how we're doing JSON logging piecemeal. What should be the acceptance criteria for this issue closing? Or do we just not worry about it and we just leave it open?
I would say the first log line that includes a topic.
Okay.
So Aaron, is this something that slog supports already?
Yeah, slog has a mechanism for doing topic-based logging. I don't know how easy it would be to like rework our macros to use that, but it should be doable. Like structured logging, it uses a hierarchical logging system to do topics, so
okay,
should be able to do that.
Sounds good. We'll go ahead and work on that piecemeal. Oops. Networking report node version in band. I think we talked about this last week, actually. This is like a discussion point. Just as a way to try to measure on the network miner rollout and follower rollout of new changes. just as a hint, there's a few ways we can make it so that miners like report their version number or release number or nodes reported as part of their handshake protocol. Just so we can get like a feel of how quickly a particular bug fix release has been picked up. I can just go ahead and work on this as part of the next round of networking patches. I don't think we've acted on this yet, but we also have an issue here to increase the testnet reward cycle length to 50 sortitions. I guess that just happens whenever we reset the testnet next.
Yeah, was this for the Xenon setup or the RegTest setup?
Both. Right now, I think they're both 5 sortitions long.
Yeah, I mean, since this is mostly a Hero PBC issue, not really relevant to this repository, we can just move it to our internal DevOps repo and track it there.
Okay.
Is it still the case? Because I think I've been looking at some bug stuff on testnet last week, and I'm pretty sure the reward cycle was 50 blocks long.
We can just check this real quick, right?
Yeah.
Is this like a configuration setting?
Not exactly. We have to compile it in.
Yeah, I could check and get back.
It is 50, at least on the testnet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is. Look at that. Okay, cool. Should it be longer? Because we were complaining that it was too small. I think that's why we just came to 50 thinking it was 5 or something like that. Like we're 135 reward cycles in right now. All right, I mean, leaving it 50 is fine with me.
Yeah.
All righty, I think that brings us to the end of this week. Backlog. We have the 3 Atlas issues. I know that's all part of the Atlas PR, which I think is now ready for review.
Yes, I'm fixing some text. Yeah, yeah, ready for you.
I noticed that 4 tests are still failing. Are those going to be fixed?
It's fixed. I just need to push them.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I'll take a look at that today. Aaron, I think this is covered by a PR, right? Selected POX recipient slot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Review in progress. Same with emitting drop mempool events.
Yep.
Sounds good. Follower panics we started for the master nodes progress burn. I think we decided this is just not a bug.
No, I think it maybe requires some.
Yeah, you're right. Just slightly nicer error.
Yeah.
Okay. Prometheus monitoring for chain quality. Is that PR opened or is that still not started yet?
Still not started. I'm not. Yeah, I'm like thinking about sort of revisiting the strategy on this, just because like actually computing these chain quality metrics while the node is running could be a little expensive for the node. And so it might make sense just to have something more like a long running version of like StackStump or something along those lines. Where you have a process that just stays alive.
What if you just had the node do this every time it notices the burn chain advances, then it just caches the result?
Yeah, so you could do this every time the burn chain advances, but the issue is just that, I don't know, you're adding like 3 Marf reads at least every time.
So you're saying this would just be like a separate process somewhere that just periodically reads?
Yeah, exactly. Because like the chain quality information is eminently obtainable through StackStump.
Yep.
So.
All right, sounds good to me. Cool. I think that takes us to the end of the issue board here. Real quick, I just want to run through issues for Stacks 2.1 because that's something we're going to probably be working on in the near future. Just everything tagged that way. We've got our migration logic, questionable support for whether or not we support Beach 32, adding a memo to Stacks transfer, using user burn support, and yeah. I guess benchmarking harness is not 2.1.
Yeah, I would say that's probably not 2.1.
Okay. Cool. Maybe sometime this week, if you have some spare cycles, it'd be good if we could just start getting a list of things that we want to start shipping in 2.1. I know that, for example, one thing that I've heard talked about, but we haven't opened an issue for is making sure that you can sign transactions, multi-sig transactions in arbitrary orders, for example, as opposed to a specific order which is currently required. Like things like that are breaking changes, but we can potentially ship as part of the 2.1 upgrade.
Yeah, I think there's also a lot of POX improvement discussions on forum and elsewhere.
Yes, there are.
Yeah, one thing we can do, I think, just to make sure we're capturing input from everyone, one option is to, I think Jude, you and I were talking about this earlier, to solicit feedback from the community, whether it's on the forum or elsewhere. And then on the hero side, we can do sort of an internal audit of things that we would like to see change and come up with a prioritized list that we can again share back on the forum or GitHub, wherever else. I think if we just go back through all of the issues that we currently have that are open, we could probably easily generate a reasonably long list that we would need to prioritize. So yeah, should we give ourselves some sort of date to come up with this initial short list of things or long list of things?
Would March 15th?
Yeah, that I think just so long as we have some date that we can move towards, just to get a sense of progress, that works. So let's work with March 15th, and then yeah, I think I'd mentioned this before, but on the hero side, we can certainly leverage Alex and others to help run the process. Jude, I don't know how much of the heavy lifting you want to do in terms of just outreach to the community, other stakeholders to get feedback. Let us know kind of what works best, and we can do that.
Sure. So I see my main, as the person who's running the steering committee, my main role is to make sure that we all follow the process correctly. So there will need to be a Stacks 2.1 SIP. I'm happy to help write that. It will need to talk about all the things that we intend to ship in that release. It will need to go through the relevant ratification processes.
Yeah,
So,
we should clarify this point. At least my understanding was that changes that get eventually bundled in Stacks 2.1 could be encapsulated in one or more SIPs. I don't know if there's a requirement anywhere that it has to be just a single SIP.
I would prefer it to be a single SIP. It's just a preference, just because it does go against what the expected reasons for hard forks are going to be in general. Namely, it goes above and beyond what the recommended remediation is for doing hard forks. I don't think that the things we intend to change are that big as a whole, so they could easily fit into a single SIP.
Sure. If that's the case, that will be a good problem or a good position to be in. I'm just not sure that that will actually be the case, but we'll see where we land.
Well, most of what I understood to be like are the biggest wish list items for Stacks 2.1 have to do with changing some small properties about how stacking works. Like they aren't that big of a change. I think a couple of them are just one-liners, but they're just in consensus critical code, so we can't just ship them.
All right, yeah, let's get a list on paper by March 15th, and then we'll see how best to package them in terms of SIPs.
Sounds good. Alrighty, and I will look into DMARC settings for Google Groups and try to figure out why our announcements are hitting spam folders. That's not good.
If somebody has one of those announcements in their spam folder, sending the raw email data to Jude or someone to look at is helpful.
Yeah, I have them actually in my spam folder, so I can send it over, and we can also have whenever Jay Wiley comes back, he can also take a look, because I think he helped set up some of the G Suite setup on the foundation side.
Sounds good. Yeah, it'd be good to make sure that these are not hitting the spam folder, because we do have some important releases.
Yeah, in the meantime, I would say people should just proactively tell Google this is not spam, just to train their algorithm over time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if the mail message is failing DKIM or something, or DMARC, Google doesn't care.
Yeah, I don't think it is DMARC actually.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking at the message right now, and I don't think it's DMARC.
No, weird. Okay.
Yeah, it's doing like some pattern matching on the content itself. It could be because it's a signed message. It could be because of some embedded URLs, but it's definitely not because of either DKIM or DMARC. I think all of the spam stuff looks good. Yeah, but we can follow up offline. I don't think it's maybe relevant to everyone on this call.
Yeah. Are there any other discussion items that people want to bring to the floor? I know we have a few minutes here, 15 minutes or so. I did have one item, if anyone else has anything, and that is, I know that particular to Stacks 2.1, one of the naturally more upsetting things about stacking is that in this last round, the minimum stacking threshold got bumped from 70,000 stacks to 80,000 stacks at the last minute, and smaller stackers got bumped out and will not be receiving rewards this cycle, nor will their stacks be returned to them. That sucks if you're one of these smaller scale stackers. But fortunately, this is also something that we could probably fix without actually having to wait until 2.1. All we need to do is create a smart contracts future. All it would have to do is you would stack your stacks through this contract. The contract would take possession of your stacks and then lock them up for you through stacks, and it would mint you a stacks future fungible token at 1-to-1 parity. So if I stack 70,000 stacks, I get 70,000 stacks futures tokens. This is what I can do then is I can go sell these on the open market for real stacks and get liquid again. Because what would happen next is once my tokens unlock from that stacks futures contract, the people who actually are in possession of those stacks futures tokens can just go to that contract when my token's unlocked and redeem them back to the original stacks. What that lets me do is it lets me do things like continuously stack now, because now I can just go redeem my stacks futures for real stacks through a liquidity provider like an exchange, and not have to wait for a cooldown period of 2 weeks in order to restack my stacks. Because the person who buys my stacks futures can just go and get my original stacks back once they unlock. This also means that if you have to get cut off from a reward cycle because the minimum threshold got raised, like you're not out of luck. You can go get your stacks back. You would just trade your futures for the actual stacks, and then the futures holder would go redeem them back for your stacks later.
Yeah, the only problem with that is that under current stacking rules, a particular principal can only stack once. So that includes contracts. So any person interested in doing this would have to basically construct their own futures contract.
Yep, they would. That still might be a preferable outcome though.
Yeah.
It's also something that like a community stacking pool, like what Frieger is doing, might be able to pull off.
Yeah, I'm like working on it, just investigating like how big of a change to POX various of these improvements would need to be. Because they are consensus breaking, like implementing them is therefore inherently more complex. Yeah, I'm investigating that. And if that turns out to be not terribly difficult, then I think that we should still be considering it for at the very least 2.1.
Oh yeah, I'm not trying to say that we shouldn't change this when we have a chance to change it in the consensus code. I'm just saying that we're not, we can alleviate some of the pain for that right now, or like, you know, imminently, is all I was trying to say.
Hey, Jude, I think we're hoping to eliminate some of this with the part of what we're doing with the grant, because if I understand you correctly, we should be able to, excuse me, people should be able to implement that futures contract on top of the POX trait that's already being built. And for Boom, we're doing basically what you said with NFTs, except we're just you know, doing stacks transfers to a single. So we're doing like a single stacking thing and rewarding back in stacks. So in a sense, decoupling the value of an NFT from the actual POX contract call.
Okay. You mean to say like I get the NFT for what am I getting from the, I'm not quite sure I quite followed there.
Yeah, it basically you get the value of the you get the value of the rewards for stacking relative to your amount of contribution.
Oh, I see. So the NFT is like a ticket, like
Yeah.
the Bitcoin later.
Right.
That's awesome.
And you'd be purchasing an NFT rather than so this is the downside, obviously, is you'd be purchasing an NFT, but the upside is you get the value plus the reward in an NFT that can be sold on that secondary market or wherever, exchanged, sold, whatever you wanted to do. That's the intention.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. I remember reading the grant proposal. I thought that was a pretty neat thing, because then, like, you know, you could buy reward cycle slots that haven't even back.
Right. So that grant we're expecting to be done middle of March, and probably need at least one cycle of testing, probably more. So, but looking like end of March, we should have something just kind of validated and ready for widespread use.
I'm looking forward to trying it out. That sounds really cool.
Pascal, are you planning on deploying Swapper?
Yes, but I've been working on other things. But yes, there's still in the cards. But and I need 1641 as well for this. But that's a minor detail. And but deploying is going to take a while, because I'll want to just do it on testnet anyway for a while, or do something on mainnet with fake tokens, or like not fake, but zero value tokens, so people can actually try it, but not put real money yet.
You can try.
So there's still going to be some time, and I know there's a few other people that are trying to look into doing this as well, and having multiple exchanges would actually be beneficial anyway.
I think I remember recently on the subreddit for Stacks, there was I think it was Brad who released the Nothing token that could be used potentially for testing. I think Binance is listing it now too, which is also kind of funny.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. I just saw that on Twitter this morning.
Binance is listing the token?
I saw a screen grab from the Stacks Trade Twitter account.
Oh.
Are you sure it's not fake news?
Yeah, it could just be fake news, but yeah.
Just fake news, I agree. It just looked, it's just like fully of true, but like, I don't know, I haven't checked myself. All right, we're coming up on time. If there's nothing else, I can go ahead and stop the recording.